Fletcher and the Falling Leaves and Fletcher and the Snowflake Christmas were launching today. And we've got with us Julia Rawlinson, author. Julia, where are you based? You're on mute, I think. That's that. Where are you based, Julia?
I'm based in Warwickshire, so sort of the Midlands
Right.
of England.
And Tiphanie is from the south of France. Whereabouts in the south are you, Tiphanie?
I'm about 25 minutes from Cannes and 10 minutes from a town called Grasse.
Lovely.
On the coast.
Yeah. Well, you know, you've had some bad weather there recently, haven't you? So
Yes.
So first of all, we're going to run a short video about the new books, the two new books, Fletcher and the Falling Leaves, which is a kind of autumnal book, and Fletcher and Snowflake Christmas. So these 4 books are about the seasons, and they're for 3 to 5-year-olds. They're beautifully illustrated and wonderfully written. So Daniel, can you run the video? And the latest books are out today. If bookshops, well, you can get them from your independent bookshop, local bookshop. If not, if it's closed, then please try online. Selling everything, we've got plenty of stock. So online with graphic.com. So first of all, I've got some questions really, and then we're going to turn this into a general discussion really, rather than a one-on-one interview. So first of all, Julia, could you tell me about the new book, Fletcher and the Falling Leaves, in terms of the idea behind the story?
Well, so Fletcher and the Falling Leaves is a book about a very kind-hearted but easily confused fox cub. So it's autumn, the leaves of his tree are turning brown and he's getting very worried about it. The leaves are falling off and he thinks his tree's ill. So he tries to help it. He tries to put the leaves back onto the tree in various different ways, but he soon finds out that you can't stop the changing seasons. It's not so easy to stop the seasons turning. So it's really a story about change and how change is a part of life, and that change doesn't necessarily need to be frightening, and change is actually all right. I think it's got a very hopeful message and quite a comforting message. I think all the Fletcher books, they sort of end on a note of hope, and they all end on sparkles as well. All the Fletcher books end on hopefulness and sparkles.
Thank you. And Tiphanie, if I can come to you, how do the stories help children to explore the world around them?
Well, Fletcher always looks closely at nature and what's going on around him, and so he's always kind of exploring and looking at the details, like he notices the little leaves. And so I think the books are really great for teachers, actually, as a springboard to various learning opportunities. The other day at school, we took our kids out on a nature treasure hunt, and they had their clipboards, so they were looking for spiders, spiky leaves, smooth leaves. So I think there's quite a lot that parents, carers can do with children together. They can go, pond dipping, climbing trees, making stick trails. And I think we all remember when we were little making like dens or nests. I think children always have lots of good ideas when they go outside exploring. So, and I think the Fletcher books really facilitate those learning opportunities.
Because you've got first-hand experience, Tiphanie, haven't you? Because you teach in France.
Yes, yeah, I'm teaching 4 to 5-year-old reception children at the moment, so they're endlessly fascinated by squashed mini beasts, and the other day they were all huddled in a corner. There's not much social distancing going on in reception class, and I looked to see what they were doing, and they were all looking at this little beetle that was scuttling around their Playmobil house. So I think, you know, children really do notice the details, and it's us that often overlook them. So if anything, children can help us kind of reconnect to nature and what's going on around us.
Okay, back to you, Julia. And what inspired you to write these stories in the beginning?
Well, some of the stories had sort of very particular things that inspired them. So actually, Fletcher and the Falling Leaves was very much just prompted by one moment with my son when he was about probably 4 years old, I think, and was walking down to reception, again at that sort of age, walking down to school, and he found a fallen leaf on the ground. It was autumn, and he found a fallen leaf on the ground and actually asked me to pop it back on a tree. So Fletcher and the Falling Leaves just came directly from that one moment with my son. And I did. I found a little twig and poked the leaf back on, and that led to the rest of the story just followed very naturally from that.
Wonderful.
And the springtime blossom story as well, that's actually my other son. It's quite nice that one of the stories has been inspired by each of my children, because I was pushing my other son just along the road into town in his pushchair, and there was blossom coming down. There were heaps of blossoms. I was sort of sprinkling blossom, and it looked like snow, and that gave me the story for Fletcher and the springtime blossom. So definitely spending time with my children, but also when I was growing up, I lived near Richmond Park, which is a sort of big wild deer park in London. So it's just full of woods and trees. And I think, you know, going further back, I spent a lot of my childhood roaming Richmond Park and collecting bugs and butterflies. My bedroom had a sort of floating population of caterpillars and snails and tadpoles in tanks and things. So I've always just loved spending time in nature and exploring that world myself as well, and still do. So
yeah, well, it's it's always, well, today it's #1 in the news, isn't it, with Attenborough and William destined to pull us all up about climate change. Tiphanie and well, Julia, how have you found working with Tiphanie? Because you're not exactly, can't pop around for a chat over sketches and stuff and the story. I mean, with Tiphanie in France and you in the UK, how's it all worked?
Well, I mean, just generally working with Tiphanie, I have to say it's been an absolute joy, because we've really clicked and just get on so well. But in terms of being in different places, I mean, usually when you write a picture book, you don't actually have direct contact with the illustrator. You just give the text to the publisher and then they get someone to illustrate it. So for the first book, which is Fletcher and the Falling Leaves, we didn't really have much to do with each other. We didn't have direct contact. But that's been what's so lovely about doing more books together and doing a series. I think with each one, we've had just a little bit more contact. So even with Tiphanie just illustrating the first books, I think usually, obviously, the illustrator responds to the writer and the words. But, you know, Tiphanie introduced a lot into the illustrations of the first books that have then fed into the stories. So Fletcher's little cart, he has a little cart he pulls around with him in all the stories, which wasn't in the text. That was just something Tiphanie added. And that's sort of that his little cart has featured more and more as the stories have gone on. And I think it's in Fletcher and the Snowflake Christmas, maybe, she snuck some little frogs into the book. There weren't actually any frogs in the story, but Tiphanie likes drawing frogs, so this little frog just pops up randomly sort of throughout the book. So then the next book, the summer one that I wrote, the frogs had a starring role, so Tiphanie could write, you know, could have frogs in the stories. And now, I mean, obviously it'd be lovely if we could get around the table and have a cup of tea together, although we probably wouldn't be allowed to at the moment anyway. But actually we email, we message, we text, we phone. So this time round, writing more stories, it's much more of a collaboration. You know, I've actually checked whether she likes the ideas for the stories before I write them, and she's checking her character sketches, seeing what we want characters to look like. So we're much more working together now, which is lovely.
Great. Well, I think we're going to just make a brief announcement, really, that well, are there any questions from anybody? But have you any questions at all, Julia, with Tiphanie, or Tiphanie with Julia?
Not really. We talk to each other quite regularly, so.
Although I would actually just like to add again, talking about Tiphanie, that I do actually think Tiphanie has a sort of direct line to the inside of my head, because if you look at her illustrations, they are just so uncannily perfect for Fletcher. And things like the first tree, the tree on the end pages of Fletcher and the Falling Leaves, it looks exactly like this beautiful oak tree that's just a couple of fields away from my house that I walk past, you know, almost every day when I walk up to the fields. So, and the, you know, the buttercup meadow in Fletcher and the summer show is exactly like a beautiful buttercup meadow just up the road from my house where we go in the spring. So I think he lives in my head, basically.
I mean, what I like about the books is every time I look over one, and it's like a really good piece of music. You know, you really enjoy playing it each time, and I find new things in the illustrations each time I look through. So that's a compliment in terms of the kind of seemingly free and easy, if you like, illustration. But in fact, there's a lot of detail in there. There's an awful lot of colour work and imagery, and they're a delight. So I'm glad to say that we're starting on a set of new books for Fletcher. We've already made a start. Fletcher and the Caterpillar is the first story that's coming out in March next year, March, April. And basically Fletcher finds a caterpillar under a juicy green leaf with the help of his friends, and he introduces Caterpillar to lots of games. But all Caterpillar wants to do is munch. So when Caterpillar stops munching, Fletcher gets rather worried. But as spring turns to summer, something magical happens. So I think you'll have to buy the book to find out what that is. Then Fletcher and the Rainbow later next year. So when Fletcher sees a dazzling rainbow, he's determined to help it shine forever. Guided by his friends, he chases it through the dripping wood. But the rainbow soon starts to fade. When the last scrap of colour is gone, Fletcher feels he has failed, until he realises again something wonderful has happened. Then that's 21. So 22, Fletcher in the Rock Pool and Fletcher in the Stars. So more news on that. So it's wonderful to be working with Julia and Tiphanie. It's a dream, actually. It's the books come out so easily, and I know it's all due to incredibly hard work by both of you behind the scenes, and it's great working with you all. So with that, I think we've finished our little launch. It's 16 minutes. I've sort of run over a little bit, but anyway, they're on our website. There are biographies about both on our website, and we're waiting there, parcels ready to go. Look forward to seeing your orders. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Run the vid, Daniel. Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.